When voters start marking their ballots on October the 20th, there will be lots to choose from. 18 candidates are vying for only 8 seats on Lethbridge City Council. Kelti Baird is one of those. She says she's hoping to bring a fresh perspective to City Hall. Kelti joins me now in studio. Kelti, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So Kelti, you come from a business background, having run your own business for 10 years.
Yep.
Just tell us a little bit about your business and how you think it's prepared you to run for council.
Yeah, so my business partner and I opened Theoretically Brewing Company in 2015. So we are celebrating our 10 years this year. So we're a microbrewery here in Lethbridge. We brew all kinds of interesting European style ales with local ingredients. We're really focused on supporting locally and growing the community around our space. So one of the things we wanted to do with the brewery was create a community space where people can come hang out, local musicians can play. There's a huge art scene here.
Oh, cool.
So we really wanted to engender that sense of community. So I've been a community builder in town now for 10 years with my business, and then multiple years before that sitting on boards, commissions, and committees with the city and various volunteer organizations throughout the city as well.
Right, because I'm aware that you've actually served in our community on a number of boards. Can you just tell us what you've learned from those experiences?
Yeah, so the boards I tend to sit on tend to be city-oriented because I'm a giant policy nerd for city stuff. So I started with the Galt Board of Directors in 2013, I think. And I was actually employed at the museum before that, so it was
Nice.
very fun. And I have a degree in history from the university, so that's kind of my wheelhouse as well. It was a pleasure working on that board. That board taught me a lot about governance structure and kind of how a governance board works, because I was quite young when I was sitting on it. I was in my early 20s. And then from there, I went to the Municipal Planning Commission, which dealt a lot more with planning issues and permissions to build structures that needed new zoning. So worked a lot with the zoning code, got really intimately familiar with the land use bylaw, which is currently up for review at City Hall, and started to become really interested in how city is planned and that kind of thing. So all of that kind of engendered this wonder in me of like how the city works and how zoning works and how we build a community together. And then from there, I went to the Heart of Our City Commission. So that's
nice.
the most recent, and I just completed my position there. So worked on, again, that's community building, lots of events, lots of grant writing and funding for local event coordinators and event hosts to put on various festivals and things like that. So again, very, very community oriented.
Wow, sounds like you've got quite the resume when it comes to community involvement here. Now, you're in our studio here because you're running.
Yes.
What are your big issues?
So I think with everyone this election, big issues are affordability. So keeping Lethbridge an affordable place to live. It's a wonderful place to live. We'd like to see it grow. Keeping things nice for businesses, you know, attracting more local investment, really focusing on keeping local businesses going as well. We have a tendency at City Hall to shoot for large projects. I'm thinking like the Cavendish plant and all of these huge investments by these major international corporations. Those are great. They're really stabilizing, but we also need to look after the small business owners as well, which is where I specialize. I like to have really good, close relationships with other small business owners and really pin down what they need to thrive in Lethbridge. So affordability for people living here, business development for people who want to work here, and then community safety as well. It has to be part of that equation. I tend to focus more on traffic safety and roadways and infrastructure, that kind of thing, rather than crime. I think we're starting to get a handle on crime statistics a little bit. Our police service is doing a wonderful job. But for me, I'm more interested in how we can create a safer community for everyone living here in terms of our roadways and infrastructure.
So obviously you're coming from a business perspective, which means you put a business perspective on things going on in the community. This is potentially good news for small business owners as well. What have you heard from as you talk to small businesses?
I think that a lot of small businesses kind of view City Hall as an obstacle to get around in their business. There's a lot of permitting, there's a lot of fees. If you're not an expert in what you need to do to set up your business, it can set you back months.
Wow.
So that can be really frustrating to try and support small businesses. So streamlining processes at City Hall, reducing that red tape, and making sure that businesses are able to thrive because of good policy here in town, that's kind of my focus.
Okay, and then you also mentioned a bit about transportation, which seems to be a hot button issue as of lately, especially for those living on the west side.
Yes.
And it seems like not a day goes by where there isn't something going on, either like on Highway 3 or Whoop Up. So can you just give me your thoughts on the need for a third bridge?
Yeah, so I spent 15 years living on the west side. We moved to the south side when we bought a house in 22. The third bridge is an interesting project. There's not a ton of federal or provincial funding for that kind of infrastructure right now. So as a councillor, I would like to continue the planning stages that have already been set up. So a third bridge is actually planned for. In our transportation master plan, it is mentioned, and land has been set aside for it. The challenge right now is the funding piece, because if we were to fund it just off of taxpayers in Lethbridge, our property tax rates are going to skyrocket, which no one is going to want. I'm more interested in trying to figure out ways to reduce the load capacity on our current infrastructure, so the Highway 3 bridge and Whoop Up. So you do that by adequately funding transit and making sure that buses run on time and run at capacity, and more people are enticed to take public transit rather than get in their car and clog up the roads. Because the vast majority, if you're sitting in traffic, you are traffic, right? So we want to make sure that people can get where they're going in a reasonable amount of time on public transit as well. So that's kind of one of my goals too.
Excellent. And now you were raised in a policing home, and you touched a little bit about crime, but I'd just be interested to hear more of your thoughts on Lethbridge's crime rate, because it has gone down.
Yeah, so I grew up in an RCMP household, so I moved around quite a bit when I was younger. There's kind of an adage in policing. Police always deal with three types of people in the population, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they deal with the sad, the mad, and the bad.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, so people who are sad are down on their luck. They tend to get involved in crime because they don't have a ton of resources and they're trying to make their way. So if we supply the resources and we can get them out of a poverty cycle, you can take that off policing's plate right away. The mad are people with mental health issues. So they tend to operate outside of societal norms, and they need a different type of support that policing is not able to provide. But we often just shove it onto policing, and that's how they're dealt with. That's not effective. It hasn't been effective the entire time. Policing is really meant to deal with just that third category, which is the bad. So those are the people who are actually malicious actors in our community. So if we can get the resources in place to deal with the sad and the mad, we can leave the police alone to deal with the people that they're actually supposed to be dealing with, and that makes a better holistic solution to the problems that we're seeing in Lethbridge right now.
Now, taxes and budgets are always a hot button issue in any election, whether it be municipal, provincial, federal. It's always about the money.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on taxing and spending?
Taxing and spending in Lethbridge is interesting. We hear a lot about how high our property taxes are. I'm a property owner, so I get it. But we also have a high degree of services in the community. So I would be really hesitant to say, oh, I'm going to cut taxes, because that's not part of my platform. I would like to maintain property taxes at their current level, because I do think that we pay high enough and there are efficiencies in the city to be found. And I'm not talking about efficiencies at City Hall in terms of salaries or anything. When you look at that, it's kind of a drop in the bucket. What we do instead is we invest in better infrastructure that is less costly. So one of the problems that we've had kind of North America wide is for the last 60 years, we've been building out this type of infrastructure that can't pay for itself in the long run.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you take a look at the two different development patterns we have in the city, it's kind of unique. On the east side of the river, we're a little bit older, so we have a grid pattern in our street designs.
Correct, yeah.
And then on the west side, we have this circuitous kind of labyrinthine hope you have it memorized, because otherwise you're going to be using Google Maps a lot.
Of course, yeah.
That kind of infrastructure actually doesn't pay for itself over time. So you have a situation where the older neighborhoods that are grid developed are now subsidizing these larger lots on the west side. That kind of development pattern is really, really costly. It's the most expensive you could possibly do.
Wow.
Yeah, so going back to something that historically has proven to be less expensive and better connected, that's going to help us reduce our costs over time and help rein in some of these huge expenditures of infrastructure maintenance. Even stuff like emergency response times on the west side are slower because of how disconnected the roadways are. Because instead of having a grid pattern, you have cul-de-sacs.
So if Lethbridge needs to build out, we need to build out in a grid pattern.
Yes. So the municipal development plan that was passed by this current city council actually redirects new developments that are going to be developed in future to return to the grid style pattern because that is the least expensive way to build. Yeah.
One thing I do like about the west side, though, like even though it doesn't have that grid pattern, because I do like the grid pattern, but I also love the roundabouts. I hate four ways. So is there a way we can marry the two together?
Oh yeah, totally. Roundabouts, you can have roundabouts in a grid pattern neighborhood. That's absolutely fine. That's just intersection control. So you can actually build roundabouts onto any road as long as you have enough space. The street I'm thinking of that I would love to see a roundabout on, I actually live there, is 16th Avenue, and where it connects in a T intersection to 13th Street South.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, that's kind of right in front of my house, and it is a pain in the butt for drivers, I can tell you.
Yeah, and then some of those four-way intersections with the traffic lights, like the light cycles are so long. Like if you hit a red, like okay, this is 2 minutes out of my day.
Yeah,
and so,
or 5 minutes out of your day.
Depending on which intersection. And I think we know which intersections we're talking about too, right?
Yeah.
Now, this is not a retirement gig for you.
No.
Just talk about like how important it is to have younger energy on city council.
Yeah, so we have a lot of great service from people who have sat on council who've been a little bit older. They bring a lot of experience, a lot of life experience to the table. Unfortunately, they also don't tend to be the most up to date on new information coming down the pike. So having younger energy on council, we're a little bit more involved in the community. We're a little bit more connected to the community, I would say, not to throw shade at anyone. And just having these new ideas that are coming out of colleges and universities where we are educated and being able to more critically think about the information that we're being given and then up-to-date researching tactics. So we're not spending 50 hours a week researching these topics. We can cut it down and get to the point quicker. So, yeah.
Kelti Baird is running for a seat on Lethbridge City Council in next month's municipal election. Kelti, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm Naveen Day. On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, thanks for watching.